You're listening to the Certified Personal Trainer Podcast, a show by personal trainers for personal trainers. It's time to become a better trainer, get more clients, and change more lives.
Welcome in, everybody. We will give it a couple minutes here to let people file in.
I love what you added here. How to consistently get clients without being slimy. I love it that I just noticed that you added this.
I added it about 45 seconds ago because I mean, this is, I know for me, when I started getting into sales in personal training, I mean, I empathize so much with the I hate selling mentality, because I also kind of hate selling. And we'll get into this a little bit, guys, here, but like a huge mental shift for me is we don't have to be a salesperson how we think about it when we're selling ourselves. We don't have to approach and pitch people and try to, you know, maybe scam is the wrong word, but have to like convince them to buy from us. And, oh, I feel so bad asking people to pay me money and all this stuff. And we all empathize a lot with that. And so I added in the without being slimy, because sales can be rooted in helpfulness, and it should be. It should not be rooted in, I, the trainer, know what's best for you, and I'm gonna convince you that it's best for you, and I'm gonna not take no for an answer. It's like, well, that is tough. That is a tough environment to be in, as opposed to leading with curiosity and problem solving and understanding like the goals that they're trying to achieve, understanding what you do as a trainer and bridging the gap. That's all sales need to be. We don't have to, feel like we're used car salesmen or whatever. And, we're just trying to like fake our way through it. It can totally be a helpfulness approach, which I find is not slimy at all. And in fact, it's almost our duty as trainers to do that. So anyway, that's why I added without being slimy, because I think a lot of trainers think there isn't a way to go about it without being slimy and without being salesy and all this stuff. And it's just not the case.
As personal trainers, if you're awesome at programming, awesome at all these things that are in this personal training industry, but you're not too shabby at sales, that's okay. I think that's completely normal. But I guess that's why we're here today talking about this.
Well, and I think that's why it's important to redefine how we think about sales too, because we don't have to be experts in sales as personal trainers.
Absolutely.
We do need to understand what we do. We need to be experts in what we do. And we need to be experts in how it helps people achieve their goals. We need to be experts in understanding problems that people want to solve, reading between the lines, meeting them where they are, and offering a solution that will help guide them to the next step of the process. That's sales. And, we don't have to follow sales call scripts, or we don't have to send, 500 DMs to these people. And there's certainly can, but it's so much more valuable as trainers to become experts in the value that we provide people or you specifically provide people, because it's going to be different for every single person.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's start diving into sales, sales principles that you can take with you. So two kind of key perspectives before we dive into this. One is there's very few universal must-dos or bests when it comes to selling yourself. We often find people try to find like, what's the best sales approach? What's the best this? That's a slippery slope to be thinking about. And that's a tough question to be asking, because there is no best. There's certain principles that you need to follow that should manifest in its own way. But how that's going to manifest for each individual person is going to be so dependent on your strengths, your weaknesses, your services, how you train people, what environments you train people in, the audience, your target audience, your clients. And so don't be super quick to think this is what works for other people, so it must work for me. It's possible that it will. But a better question to be asking throughout this presentation and beyond is that works really well for them. What principle did they manifest there? And how could I, if the exact approach is not right for me, how could I manifest that same principle in my own world? Wow, I saw this person who just made a ton of sales, sharing some before and after pictures of themselves and sharing their story. And you think, well, I don't really have good before and after pictures of myself, so I can't do that. Maybe you couldn't do that, but what's the root of what worked for that person? It's being transparent about their journey, about their story, letting people in on who they are as a person, how they got to where they are today. That's the principle that now you can take in your own world. You don't want to copy paste the post. You want to take the idea and put it in your own situation. So be thinking about that. And this kind of captures this second point too. Be thinking about that throughout the entire presentation. And just as you are trying to develop your own sales thought process beyond this, ask, what's the box that we need to check here? Not like, what's the exact tactic that I need to do? What am I trying to accomplish? And then how can I accomplish that in a variety of ways? Or how does it make sense for me to accomplish that? What sounds like a fun way, an enjoyable way that I could do that? Because selling in a way that's authentic to you is going to be very crucial. It's very easy to pick up on when you're uncomfortable or you don't feel confident in what you're saying. That is going to be a linchpin to selling well in general.
I think finding strategies in general when it comes to sales that work for you and kind of pass your own like common sense tests and kind of pass what you need. I think that's really the key here, and finding strategies that you personally understand the best to apply to a group of people that understand, what you're supplying is the best. And once you know what these are for you, I think the people that you are trying to help will understand them better. And then periodically, we can reevaluate our sales tactics and determine, which elements are growing our business and working for us. And we can see what isn't working for us and maybe are having a negative effect on our business, right? And then we can adjust fire from there. But I definitely think, learning from your surroundings and learning from all of that, what you just mentioned, is absolutely key. I agree with everything you just said. Yeah.
When we are unsure with what we're selling, it is very, very challenging to convince prospects of what we're selling as well. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but our own confidence and knowledge in what we do is going to be the foundation of communicating it effectively, because we're the experts in that. We can't expect our clients, we can't say to our clients, what service do you want here? They probably don't know. They know what they want to accomplish. And then it's our job to take, okay, you want to reach this end goal. You have these barriers, you have these goals, you have all of this information. Now with our vast amount of knowledge about training and what we do, we bridge the gap. And this is why it's so important to take an authentic and individualized approach to your selling, because nobody else is you and nobody else does exactly what you do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, so the first step into a lot of this process, again, we'll get a little bit more into like, how do you understand the services that you offer? But the flip side of that, and equally as important, is who the heck do you help? Understanding the problems and barriers and sort of process that your client might go through to eventually be a client from you, and meeting them where they are. For instance, if you're working with moms who don't exercise that often, or if you're working with beginners in any capacity, trying to speak to them in very nuanced manners and comparing and contrasting things that are very detailed and breaking down things really intensely, like that's not meeting them. That's not meeting this audience where they are. That's meeting them 6 steps into the future. When we understand our people, and And I bring up the beginners because that was my niche when I was training at a gym, was people who like never worked out and wanted help transitioning from I don't do anything right now, but I know I need to help me get in this world of working out. That's a very different population than even, somebody who's been working out for a few years and wants to put on more muscle. Like that's often when I hire a trainer, it's like they don't need to be helping me get to the gym. They don't need to be explaining basic concepts to me. They don't need to be making me feel comfortable because of where I'm at and who I am and what I'm trying to accomplish. And so understanding the progress that your potential clients are trying to make, who they are. And again, you're not going to know this for every single client individually. But from a high level, I think you should understand who it is that you're helping, so that when you're speaking with them and maybe you're putting out some content that's valuable and helpful, you can be meeting them where they are in the whole journey. And so like a lot of the work, back to sort of the example of using beginners, a lot of my job, the first like several weeks of a session was like purely focused on enjoyment. And like when I would have intro calls with people to see if we were the right fit, like sales calls, I guess, I would very rarely go into all the specifics of what we're going to do. And my goal was to make them not be scared of this process and to normalize their feelings. And like I realized that is what's going to help move them along the buying process. It's not saying, okay, let me show you this program that I'm going to build for you. Look at how detailed it is. Look at all these different exercises. It's probably intimidating for that person. Whereas you show that to me or Sam or anyone on the Fitness Mentors team, perfect, great. I actually love the detail in this program, and I like that you're explaining all the different nuances. And again, this is like back to our first point, very few universal best, understanding what we want to accomplish, understanding who you help, and then bridging that gap. So I feel like I spoke for a long time there, but anything else to add, Sam, in terms of like understanding your target audience or your target clients?
Yeah, like you said, I also, I think, oftentimes when I have this conversation with people, it is this sense of like, well, especially when I work online and I'm kind of reaching out to a mass amounts of people, it's like, you might not know what they're looking for, especially if it's online, right? You might not know what these clients are looking for, like you said, Alex, but being confident in understanding your niche, I think is key here, because you might not know what services and things that these clients need, but having confidence and all of that in your product and really knowing how to open up to these different groups of people and allow them to understand that you can serve them is key.
Yeah, no, I think that I can actually piggyback off that really well. And I think the 2 points that I have, you guys have heard me talk about this so many times. Oftentimes it's like, I don't think that you always find your niche. I feel like your niche finds you. And so for me, I've just with my content and the stuff that I put out to market my services, I've always started with curiosity and fun. So what stuff am I naturally interested in? And then also what goes hand in hand with that, not only what I'm interested in, but what also sounds fun to me, even in the terms of how I market, like in the medium, right? So that could be video or writing or whatever, right? There's so many different ways that you can market to your niche, but working with your strengths and allowing your niche to find you over time, and also understanding that it's an iterative process and understanding that this can change as you change. Like my niche has changed as I've evolved as a trainer, as a person, as I've gotten older, right? So I think don't be so rigid with how you think about this. Don't be afraid to change your mind. And oftentimes I think starting with yourself, like Alex said, think about you 2 years ago. What would you have paid yourself 2 years ago to then learn, right? Like you said, all the common obstacles, all the myths, all the things that you once thought, or maybe the places that you turned and things, how can you create content out of that? Or how can you market your services to that past version of you? And I think that that's a great place to start. And again, don't be afraid to change your mind. This is going to be a dynamic process. Don't beat yourself up. Don't try and figure this out perfectly right from the beginning.
It's such a good point. We run across so many people who are like, I can't start because I haven't written down my niche yet, or like it's still so broad, or it's still this, and that's okay. You know, as Matt just said, it's such an iterative process. The only way you're going to learn too is by having conversations and putting things out into the world and see what resonates. And there's only so much that we can learn by just wondering about it on our end and thinking and hoping. Where we actually get data is repetition. So it's such a good point. And I'm curious, Matt, if you don't mind, like, because one point that I think is really key is talking to understanding a niche and sort of catering your sales process around that. That inherently means that it's not going to be for everybody. You know, that inherently means some of your stuff will specifically not be for the right person. And I think as a new trainer or a long-time trainer, that feels wrong. You know, that feels like, well, I'm alienating these whole group of people. Why would I say I'm working with like this specific group when I really help everybody, you know? And I'm curious, Matt, because I know your niche has evolved a little bit over the years. I'm curious how you've kind of navigated the like, one, just like the mental side of it on your end of like getting over like, yeah, I'm not for everybody. How'd you kind of navigate that?
I think I've never known how to not put out content that I'm interested in, you know, because again, it goes like all of my creativity, everything that I do stems from a creative place. And I can't follow that creativity if I'm in a box that is arbitrary or that like, you know, I think that I should be in or anything like that. And also it goes back to the whole thing. We're often best at teaching what we need to hear the most. And so as I've lived my life and as I've gotten older, so I'm 29 now, I've been doing this since I was about 22 or 21. It's like, obviously my problems and my lifestyle and everything, even how I've evolved as someone who goes to the gym less frequently than what I used to do back in the day. Because I used to be much more hardcore into it, going at 6 days a week, 2 hours a day back in college, right? And now I have more responsibilities. I've gone through different experiences. I've worked with different people, and my content and everything that I've created has evolved with that. And so my niche has just simply, that's why I think tailoring it towards yourself as much as possible and scratching your own itch is one of the best ways, because it's simply as you go into different experiences and different parts of your life, that just naturally evolves. And you also, it's like you've been solving problems this entire time. And so you get better at solving those problems, and you're able to be more self-aware, and you're able to look at problems from different angles that maybe other people who've only just recently started thinking about these things or having these certain problems or having these certain clients or whatever, you just have a unique perspective on it. So it's an iterative process over time that allows you to not only come up with new ideas, but being able to effectively overcome those with better strategies and tactics or more simplified ways of communicating that, so that the person that you're trying to help the most can understand it.
Yeah. And what a better way to, I mean, it's the end goal of having a niche is to solidify and strengthen your understanding of who you help. And when you start with yourself, and we're not saying that like the best niche is you know, but it is a helpful starting point of, as we've said, because you already kind of get it. You are able to empathize on a deep level because it's you, and it pushes you a few steps ahead than if you know, like we've worked with a lot of men who want to train moms, which is absolutely viable. They're likely going to have several steps to fill to like fully understand the fitness process as a mom. There's only so much. Now there's a lot of men who have moms as a niche and do very, very well, of course. But when thinking about, I have no clue where to start, sometimes starting with a niche that you don't have experience with and is not you can just be a higher barrier to that understanding.
All right. So obviously, guys, today we are talking about, techniques and kind of nuggets of information to use when talking about client acquisition, both for in-person training and online training. We're going to go back and forth. And honestly, a lot of this stuff applies to both. There's no reason that if you're just an in-person trainer, that doesn't mean your social media page can't be awesome and you have great content. And if you're an online trainer, that doesn't mean that you can't go train someone in person and meet people at a networking event, right? They're not mutually exclusive. I think I feel very passionately about that. So a couple of things here, a couple of points here that we can definitely apply to both forms. As I said, I think most things can. In the wise words of Matt 2 weeks ago on our webinar, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this technical proficiency. He said, be good at your job. And at first I found this pretty funny last week or 2 weeks ago, but at the same time, it is true, right? When we are good at our job and when we understand that we are good at it, more importantly, we understand that we're good at it and we're letting others around us know that we are good at it. I think that 100% is like a key to gaining clients. I think this also, let's say Alex is my trainer and I let Alex know that I have a set of bad knees and I work an 11-hour shift every day. And he creates a program for me that is just top notch. It fits so well with exactly the information I fed him. And it's so customized to my lifestyle, right? If Alex makes me that program, I 100% am telling people about it, which is obviously that gets into referrals, right? But I am 100% telling people about this program Coach Alex made for me. That's because he was good at his job, right? Not only was he a good programmer, but he probably listened to me. He listened to everything I needed within my program. And that all comes with just being good at your job and a good trainer. Now, I would say this is not the most important thing when it comes to the sales process, but it is definitely a good thing to be good at your job and be confident in your ability to serve your clients. Alex,
And showcase. Yeah, I was gonna say, and showcase and ensure people know that
right.
You're good at your job. I mean, we were just talking in a little meeting before this presentation of like getting your clients unbelievable results and then keeping that to yourself is like, if a tree falls in the forest, did it actually fall? Of course you actually got your clients the great results. But if you don't, share their story with their permission, and highlight what you do and how you help your clients get results. I mean, from the sales side of things, you're missing out on a ton of opportunities. And so it is, I mean, being good. So 2 weeks ago, we were talking about client retention. And Matt, we were talking about all these strategies, and Matt's like, probably the best retention strategy is like being a good trainer. And that's also a great sales strategy as well. But when it comes to sales, the only like added layer on that is make sure people know, and share that in a way, again, that's authentic to you. But you don't get a lot of sales value when it's kept, but you do need to be good at your job. And it's, it's back to the old adage of if your marketing is so good, but then your product sucks, maybe you get people through the door, but it's not going to be sustainable. So certainly, like, the foundation of all of this is you have to be able to get people results. And if you feel like you're at that stage where you're like, you don't feel confident that you could get your clients results, then it's time to take a step or two back and like let us help you develop the skills. Because of course you can take on 1 or 2 clients to learn, but you have to have a baseline understanding.
I think another, so just to add a tactic to that first one, the technical proficiency, being good at your job and showcasing your work. I actually put this in the NPT this morning. So if you guys are not on our newsletter, you should be. However, this is something that I had just recently started doing too. And I said to make 2 folders. For one folder should be for picture testimonials, right? And then another folder could be for written testimonials. And so now just every time you get a transformation, or every time even in a client update or a DM or a text message or whatever it is, they give you some kind of testimonial either about you or about their transformation or what they've learned or anything where you're like, oh, this would be a good lesson to teach or to market my services to show that I know what I'm talking about. You now have them in a local place. Just put 2 folders always on your MacBook or something, or on your laptop, right? Or on your desktop. That way, over time, then you can start to add to this. And then it's just like, if I would have done this since I was doing it, started 7 or 8 years ago, it's like, do you know how many testimonials I'd be able to just pull from at any given time to then at least like, I can provide value by telling them the main problem that I helped solve for this client, or how they arrived at it or whatever. And over time, it's just like, you can pull from those anytime you want to show that you know what you're talking about, to put on sales pages, to put on your social media, right? So it's just, that's a little tactic that I think is something that I wish I did a long time ago. And so I think the next best time to start is obviously today.
Yeah. And once you start getting these testimonials, use, the voice of your customer. Like Matt said, when they start describing how you helped them, now that's how you describe how you help people, especially when you start noticing patterns. When you start noticing patterns of like, wow, how comfortable I made people feel, or like how much I ease people's nerves, or they used to hate the gym and now they don't. Like maybe you didn't even realize that was like a value. Well, now you know, and now you need to start communicating that when you're talking about the value of your services. So that's the other kind of byproduct of it.
You'll notice patterns. You'll notice patterns. Like one of the questions that I have on my client questionnaire whenever people sign up with me is, why did you want to choose to work with me specifically over everybody else? And so then you'll notice patterns. You'll notice the words that they say. And it's like, if you're wondering with personal brand what you should double down on, it's probably that, right? Like you should probably double down on the thing that everyone is already telling you. Because I'm sure you have a general idea maybe, but whenever people tell you and then they also use their own words behind it, that's whenever it can be really effective.
So funny. The other day I was talking to one of our clients here that we mentor at Fitness Mentors, and I had her for her website. I wanted her to just give me all the testimonials that she had received, whether it was one that a client had written, or maybe just like a little blurb that they had emailed her about something they loved in their session. And we were chatting about them. And I said, I don't want to say too much, but I said something about them. And she's like, they said that in the testimonial? And I was like, don't just get these testimonials and share them on your site. Read them, soak them in, because I 100% agree. And honestly, anyone could go do this right now on any website ever. Testimonials tend to have these trends. Like you guys just said, they tend to have these nuggets of truth that you're like, oh, I see a common theme here, right? So it's 100% so important to not only get the testimonials and receive them, but to read them and to learn from them and to apply these things into the way you pitch or communicate with people sales wise and into your training sessions. I 100% agree. I just wanted to add that in there because I thought it was pretty funny.
That is funny.
Topical.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I just checked the box. I got it. Great. Let's move on to the next one.
And I was like, honestly, girl, these are great testimonials. So make sure you read them, because honestly, it's a confidence booster. Half of sales is confidence. Like if you, like I've said 15 times, if you're confident in the way you are talking to these people and you're confident in your technical proficiency, it's golden, right? You're in a much better spot. And I guess that brings us to our next point of building rapport and avoiding generalized pitches or having one set script. I definitely, in my opinion, I think sometimes it's easy for people to think that others are just born with this skill naturally to just have small talk with people and to just be so comfortable with that. I think some people are. I think some people are naturally good at building rapport. But even if you struggle with small talk, or you think your potential clients struggle with small talk, and they aren't, or you're not really into this, you can develop rapport. Developing rapport, in my opinion, this is my biggest piece of advice with this, is listening. Listen to your clients, right? Listen to these people that you're making conversation with at the gym. Listen to these people that you might be messaging on Instagram. Listen to these people in your emails, right? Let everything that they are telling you and giving you, let those be clues and insight into kind of, then once you have that, you can really think, what does this person maybe need? How can I best help them next, right? A lot of times, every person that walks into a gym in some way is trying to solve a problem or to reach a goal, right? So even striking a conversation with someone, even if it has nothing to do with your services, listening to them and opening up to them and allowing them to open up to you, that's a huge way to just build rapport. It's to build this trust and rapport kind of go hand in hand. That is what rapport is. So yeah, and I think avoiding generalized pitches, I mean, I don't know what y'all's thoughts are, and I would love to hear, but I know personally, selling at Fitness Mentors and any sales jobs that I've had at the past, and even when I was working at Equinox and I was selling my personal training services, I definitely saw myself, and I still see myself sometimes falling into this trap of just saying the same exact thing to everyone. I think sometimes it works, obviously, but I think for your enjoyment and for your benefit and for loving what you're doing and for what you're trying to get out of these conversations, I think that can get kind of boring and people see through that. But honestly, more importantly, I think that half the reason people join the personal training industry is because we do want to help our clients. We do want to listen to their problems and listen to what they need from us to help solve their problem, right? So by avoiding these generalized pitches and these generalized, hi, how are you? How can I help you today? Right? By avoiding that and just having like a nice, fun, positive convo, I think that does wonders.
It so does, and it's sort of back to our how are we thinking about sales, and it leads into our last point too. It's such a good point because we almost didn't call this like a sales person, because when we're talking to a prospect, we find that people put their sales hat on and they're like, all right, time to pitch. And it's like, really, we just want to have a conversation. That's all that's happening here. We don't need to go into these conversations with prospects, regardless of where they are in like the buying process. We don't need to go in and be like, all right, crap, I got to pitch this person, and
right.
I got to convince them to sell. You so don't. You need to go in and build rapport, like Sam said. Show them your personality. Show them you're easy to talk to, and ask questions. That's it. And if there's no pressure to pitch them right at that second. It gets a little bit trickier when, like, if you work at a big box gym and they force you to sell, and like that's kind of a separate conversation. But in general, and if your manager is having you sell this way, then send them to us so we can ship that. But it's the classic gym sales is it's a big reason people don't like gyms. And so it's we don't need to have our purpose of these conversations and the end goal of building this rapport be like, I'm going to pitch this person. Again, if they communicate a goal that they want to achieve and you can help them achieve that goal, you do need to let them know. I guess that's pitching them, but it's more of, I hear you, I understand what you're saying. This is exactly what I do, and I go about it X, Y, and Z. Would that interest you? Yes. You're not pitching them before you understand what they're trying to solve. We don't need to go in with all the answers. We need to go in with all the questions. Yeah. And then once we're presented with a clear avenue forward, then we need to provide the answers once we understand their problem. But we don't need to go in being like, all right, shut up, don't talk, let me do my 2-minute pitch and let me know if you want to do it. Tough to go that route. And it also, it's likely going to have you playing a quantity game with your sales, and rather than a quality game. And we err on the side of the quality game, make each conversation meaningful, as opposed to let me just copy paste the same message to 1,000 people, and if I get 5, then I'm happy. That's a tough route, and it doesn't do a lot of work for building your reputation and building your personal brand and doing all of the things that are actually going to be compounding for you over many years of your training business. I mean, I know when I was training, I literally got a text from an old client 2 weeks ago who I trained in college, which was, I don't know, I probably trained her in 2016 or something like that. And I hadn't talked to her in 4 or 5 years. And she texted me and said, hey, I'm wanting to get back into personal training. Could you help me? And it was such a light bulb moment for me where I'm like, if I just tried to pitch this person and force them to give me an answer right now, and they say no, and then I'm like, all right, let's move on to the next one. Man, it just really puts you in a box that is not helpful. It doesn't, everybody's going through their own buying process. And the fact that I focus on building a good relationship with this old client, I'm now top of mind for this client, and I'm constantly adding to those relationships so that as more and more people are ready to buy, I'm the first person that they think of. And as more and more people see what I'm up to and see that I'm still taking clients, and for that group of people that I built relationships with, I'm the go-to. And I mean, I hadn't talked to this client in so long, so many years, and she texted me and was like, let's do it. And I'm like, wow. I mean, wow. That highlights so much.
I also think, just to add real quick onto that, I think there's 2 things. I think one thing that I always, whenever I was younger, first getting into it, I would get caught up in my process of taking someone from like a warm lead to like the sale. And so it's like, you know, on social media, they fill out the link in my bio, which is like a Google form that asks a bunch of questions and stuff, right? And then after that, then that's whenever I contact them with either a sales call or like an email consult or something. But then they would DM me, right? So somebody DMs me on social media, hey, I'm interested in coaching. And I'm like, oh, sure. Just fill out the link in my bio, fill out the application, then I'll get a hold of you. And there was all these other steps. Whenever one of my business mentors that I was talking to during that time, he was like, why don't you just start asking them questions right there in the DMs? Like, why don't you just start the application process that you're telling them to do? You're telling them to go fill out questions on this other link, right? And that's creating friction for them to go from where they are now to where you want them to be, right? Which is closing the sale. So it's like, why not just start? And of course, this isn't going to be for every situation, but for the most part, start to ask questions right there in the DMs. And I can't tell you how many times I've skipped the sales call process or skipped the email consult simply by doing the consult right there in the DMs, because you're asking them questions, they're answering. Just do everything that you were going to do on the call or on the email consult, and just do it right there in the DM. So don't be afraid. Just remember your main objective, and don't think that you have to be so structured with all these different things, right? And then I think also the other part, as I was just alluding to, so I actually do email consults and I don't do any sales calls, which is, you know, asinine to a lot of people in the sales world and in the fitness space. And I am fully comfortable potentially giving up, because I would still argue back and forth on this. I'm okay with potentially giving up a few sales per month or however much it is to not do sales calls, because sales calls absolutely drain me and I hate them, right? So it's like, I've designed this business to create the life that I want, and that doesn't involve sales calls, right? That doesn't involve all these things. And I've realized that I can do these email consults and I can do my sales via DMs or via email and be just fine. Maybe I could convert a few more with the sales calls, but again, that's going to take out the quality of life that I have. And it's also going to, like, if I have a sales call it's like, I'm done. Like an hour sales call for me is actually like a 4-hour sales call as far as creativity goes, and just like the mental space and mental energy that it takes me. Whereas email, as we were talking about scripts and things, it's like, talk about a script. You can have a script, you can ask questions, you can be very meticulous, you can think through the answers and the questions, you can ask them things. And so yeah, just remember what your strengths are and what you actually want to get out of this and how you work best. And don't just listen to the gurus or whatever you're supposed to do, quote unquote, because there's always different ways to achieve this thing.
Such a good point. Such a good point. And it's, I mean, it's back to the fundamental. You got to understand yourself. Matt hates sales calls. Instead of forcing him into doing sales calls, which, by the way, maybe like in theory, it would give you a few extra sales, but it would actually probably reduce your sales in the grand scheme of things.
I think so. I genuinely think so. And I think that my emails, what I've also been able to do is just like with sales calls, how you can, some people will listen back to the tape and figure out where they can improve and stuff. I can do the same thing with email consults, right? With looking at the emails, seeing how people respond, seeing what they like, seeing what they don't like. So you can have that same iterative process via writing. So yeah, I agree.
This is why it's so important to understand, what box are we trying to check? The box we're trying to check is not do sales calls. That's not the box. That's the tactic that could check the box. The box is, we need to build rapport with our people and lead with curiosity and ask questions. How do you want to do that? What sounds authentic to you? What makes sense for your clients? It's not, let's do sales calls. And again, if you're like, I freaking love talking on the phone and I can sell anything on the phone, maybe sales calls are a fundamental piece of
absolutely.
your
Of
process.
course, obviously do that.
Exactly.
And I think your point 3 here is so true. Like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to help this person. You're trying to help, like, that's all you have to do. You ask questions. That's why I think that like you said, the formalized structure of sales calls, I think it could be helpful to, if you get stuck, if you get caught up, you can refer back to that maybe, and you can be like, oh, maybe we haven't talked over training history. We haven't trained, like, injury history or something like that, right? Then you can pull from that what you want or what you need in that moment. But for the most part, just be a human, be a person. You're trying to help this person, and you have the certain set of skills. You're the expert. They want help. You want to help them. So just, yeah, don't overthink it too much.
Let's dive into a few more points here, and then we'll get to any questions that there are. And I actually want to, Sam, I would love for you to jump into the referrals, but I actually want to touch super quickly before you dive into that onto the second point, which is a little bit more fundamental. And it stems from a lot of people, again, our mentorship clients and elsewhere, trying to navigate the situation of, I don't want to give away too much information for free. You know, I don't want to answer questions that pop into my chat, or when somebody on the gym floor asks me like, hey, can you help me with form on this exercise? Can you help me do this? There's often this barrier of like, well, that's for paying clients. I can't give you that because that's for paying clients, or I'll only provide a small answer, because if you want the full answer, then you're gonna have to pay. This is not one, you're not, the value that you're providing for most people goes well beyond the information in your brain. You're not like taking a fitness mentors course, learning about fitness and programming, and then being like, hey, I have all this knowledge that I want to give to you. That's knowledge is abundant. Google exists. We have all the knowledge at the tip of our fingers. It's not a lack of knowledge that's the problem. It's a lack of knowledge implementation, lack of utilizing these skills that you have and in using it to help your clients achieve their goals. That's what they care about. And so this could be another sort of mindset shift here, where you're not selling your expertise, you're selling the usefulness of your expertise in helping your clients achieve the goals that they want to achieve. Of course, you have to know what you're talking about, and prospects do want to know that you know what you're talking about. You know, that helps to be certified. That's why it helps to showcase what you do and that you get people results. You definitely have to build authority and trust. but when it comes to like, well, I don't want to give away a bunch of information. I don't want to post, what if I post a blog that gives away like how I program or whatever? That is helping you build authority. It's not what you're selling. You're selling this process. So let's say you write a blog, for instance, or film a video around like, here's exactly how I program for people. That is not going to give away any secrets or like of what you do, because the magic in what you do is taking that expertise and applying it to each person. And that can only happen when a client signs on with you. I wanted to break really quickly and see if there are any questions.
There are not any questions. We had some awesome feedback. Fabiola said, touching back to being new and only really having baseline of knowledge because you're just starting. Oh, how do you value yourself to get new sales? I'm sorry, that was a question. So how do you value yourself to get new sales is what her question was.
Such a good question, because valuing yourself and your services is totally the foundation of this. When you have a baseline level of knowledge, so you have to have enough knowledge and confidence in that knowledge to believe that you can help reach certain goals. You can help people reach certain goals. If you believe that if you get a client in front of you and they tell you, and it's just say a basic sort of gen pop client, they want to lose 15 pounds, they don't really know necessarily what they want, but they're just like, I'm gaining weight, I want to be healthier, kind of a classic gym client. If you don't feel confident that you can get that person results, I think we need to figure out a path that will help you build confidence, whether that's getting more knowledge, maybe, or like working with people to build the confidence. Because if you don't have confidence that you can help at least some people, some specific group of people reach some specific goal, we got to fix that. Because that confidence that you can help people is absolutely going to come through, or the lack of confidence is absolutely going to come through. And like, if you are at a point where you're thinking, okay, I think I do need just to get clients, do what we did at the start of this webinar, where you reach out to a very small handful of people. You just got certified as a CPT, you haven't worked with any clients before. Be transparent about your situation and say, hey, I am just starting as a personal trainer. I'm happy to offer sessions at a reduced rate to build my clientele. If you want to offer me fee, there's no problem in being transparent around that. You don't have to pretend like, yeah, I know everything.
I think you should also be resourceful.
Totally.
Try and figure it out, you should have a network of professionals that you've probably looked up to at this point, right? Who are in different fields or helping out with different areas. And it's like, be resourceful. You're going to have to probably Google some things. You're going to have to of course, there's a foundational knowledge that you should have before you start working with people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You don't want to hurt anybody, but I think intentions are huge, and the willingness to be resourceful in the beginning is going to be paramount, right? Of course, you're not going to know everything. Even today, there's still stuff that people will mention to me, or I will be troubleshooting a certain set of problems. And I'm like, I don't know what exactly this is, but that's also why you're the expert. You're not intended to know every single thing possible that comes at you, especially in the beginning. And so you can't kind of gain that experience without actual experience. So in the meantime, you've got to be resourceful. You can turn to textbooks, you can turn to professionals, you can ask people questions, send people emails, right? If you don't know, be like, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to find out for you.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the best ways that you can do. And then over time, your competence will then breed confidence, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where that comes from, is just it's experience. And then also, the more problems you solve, the more trust you're going to have in your ability to solve future problems, right? And I think that's huge. And I think that's how you become a more confident trainer over time, is the willingness to say, I don't know, but then also being resourceful enough to go and find it. And then over time, you get better and better at this.
Yeah. And I also think my only other point around this is understanding, actually, sort of back to that, you're not selling information, understanding where your value is as a trainer is often very helpful. and building that confidence. Your value as a trainer is you are providing the guidance and the path towards these people's health and fitness goals. You're not giving them a ton of fitness information. And that also helps you communicate like what you do for people as well. But I think just like really understanding what is the value that I provide to clients. We're so much more than rep and set counters, you know. We wanted to touch on the content creation side of things because we get a lot of questions about it. When it comes to when we're thinking about the box to check of getting in front of prospects and communicating with people, it absolutely does not need to be online. But a really, I say easy, but like a really accessible avenue to check that box is often social media. And so we wanted to just really, really briefly touch on content creation and like two really key points that are so fundamental to getting the most out of like building content online, because a lot of these boxes that we're checking or that we want to check can be checked via intentional content, right? Showcasing your work by posting pictures of the inside of your online training or filming a 30-second video of a session or whatever it may be. But key point number one is actually up in the title here is every single piece of content that you post, posting and leaving is not as valuable as posting and using content as a bridge to relationship building. A lot of people that we work with are like, they're posting relatively generic things, you know, they're not showing their authenticity, their personality. It's kind of like bland. And it's just like basic tips of like, eat your vegetables and drink water. And here's a sample workout and all this stuff, which isn't bad. I know that's not bad. But then like they don't do much after the content is posted. And there isn't a lot to like differentiate the content from anything else. If that's that arena is very, very challenging to operate in. It's very hard to make progress living there. However, when you utilize your own story, when you're not afraid to kind of lean into your personality, like if you swear, then swear. And if people don't like that you swear, then they're probably not going to be your ideal client regardless. You know, use your authenticity to attract people who are going to work well with you. And again, it goes back to like, you're not going to be for every single client on earth. So don't try to be for everybody, be yourself, and then allow people to come to you. But everything that you post should be leading to genuine conversations. Even if someone reaches out and be like, love that content. Wow, amazing. This should be the start of a conversation. So glad it resonated with you. Just curious, like, what did you like about it? Or what resonated with you? And now you're in a sales conversation, but it's not sales. You're just having a conversation with another human. And if you learn that you can help them, then great. And if you learn that you can't help them, like with a paid service, then help them to the best of your ability regardless, even that if that's referring them to somebody else or sending them a link to an article or writing a long answer. So that's sort of like point number one of building content and posting content is be sure it's a bridge to building relationships. That's where you're going to get the most out of it. Trying to build like viral pieces of content and stand out just via content is totally possible. But we find for most people, it's just a lot more challenging. And then in terms of where to share your content, it doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, but be thinking about where do my prospects hang out?
Yeah, I definitely struggled a lot. I think the first year of having a business online, I loved it. I did it every single day. I was okay. Actually, that's a lie. I didn't love it. I was okay with it. I was doing it because I thought that's what my ideal clientele needed. Therefore, I was like, I'll do anything. I'm willing to do the work. However, I know we spoke about, the longevity of your career and what you are wanting to do in 5 years from now. Like, I don't plan on quitting. Therefore, I need to figure out something that works not only for my ideal client, but for me, what resonates with me. And I really struggled with this. I, especially during COVID, was like, damn, why don't I like social media? I mean, I've had plenty of people tell me like, oh, you got the face, you got the whatever, you should have a social media account. You could have thousands of, and I'm like, I don't want it. I don't, but then again, I think it's important to acknowledge, I actually do think that this slide is very important because in our mentorship program, I have had more people say they don't like social media and they don't want to use it than people say they do. And I know we're going to tap into the mentorship program here in a hot sec, but I want to really touch on this. These are all other ways to reach out to these people. Instagram and TikTok are excellent. They are awesome. I mean, Matt here is so good on Instagram. I love following him. That's what it's about. You want your followers to love your content, right? But if you're not into that, it's okay. And that's coming from a coach who feels that way. And that's also coming from someone who talks to people on a daily basis, that some of these people love it and some of these people really don't. I'm working with someone right now. We just built her website. It looks phenomenal. She's launching her products tomorrow. And she really, she likes Instagram, but she's like, I'm not starting a TikTok, right? My ideal clients don't even know what that is. So it's just one of these things. I completely agree with you here, Alex. It's whatever resonates with the people you're trying to serve, but also what resonates with you.
A sign of a more experienced trainer is you know how to take the principles of programming and manifest them in different ways for different clients. Because for one client, a 2-day-a-week full body split is going to make sense. For another client, a 5-day-a-week like body part split is going to make sense. For another client, a 1-day, there's so many different approaches. And this is exactly how we approach the mentorship as well. We listen, we ask questions, we understand what you want. And we don't just listen to what you say and then say, okay, let's do it. We assess your thinking as well. So if you say like, I really need to focus on my website, and we're analyzing what you want to accomplish, and we don't think that you need a website right now, which is actually relatively common, we'll tell you that. We're not just leaving everything up to you and then acting on it, but we absolutely start with, what do you even want to get out of this whole thing? What does success look like to you? Do you want to run an online business? Do you want to work at a gym? What's the end goal? That's going to determine the path. So I think it's really powerful. I don't think there's many other ways to go about it.
Yeah. And I think that it's, Alex, I feel like you and I feel the same on this, but having mentors in the personal training industry is amazing for you. Not just for your business and not for your sales and not for your client retention, but for you mentally, for you to know that you have a support system, for you to have someone that you not only look up to, but kind of just has a pieces of advice, or even just an ear to listen, right? Having a mentor is awesome, but having a mentor in your industry is even better. And it's an alliance. I always tell people that, right? It's not, I'm not here to tell you exactly what to do on what date, right? I'm not a teacher giving you homework, but it's an alliance, and it's a very fun, awesome thing that I feel passionately about. And I love doing for this, the Fitness Mentors fam. But yeah. If you guys have any questions at all, seriously though, feel free to reach out to me over email. And even there, we can set up a phone call. Like I said, I love talking on the phone. So that doesn't even have to be your 30-minute free call. I would just rather talk on the phone anyways. But yeah, guys, that's really it.
And I'd rather email. So if you want to talk on email,
don't call Alex.
Don't call me. Let's chat via email.
Awesome.
Well, hope this was useful for you guys, and you feel a little bit more confident approaching these sales conversations, or at least able to reframe sales a little bit.
Yeah.
And
be human.
Be human. Be yourself.
Yourself. That's exactly it. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming today.
Thanks, guys. Hope it's a good weekend, everybody. And our door's open if we can be of help.
Awesome. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.
As always, thanks for listening to the Certified Personal Trainer Podcast. You can learn more about Fitness Mentors at fitnessmentors.com. Be sure to share this podcast on social media. And remember, we are here to help you succeed.